Cora Henderson over at Pitt and Frank Attorneys. Hannah put $75,000 into her home. She was on the deed with her ex-husband. He passed away. Their two kids are now owners of a quarter of the home. And Hannah is asking in this email, can she sell? And if she does, can she recoup the money she personally put into the home? She says she does have receipts. What would you say, Cora?
Oh, great question. So without going too far down a rabbit hole in titling, I would want to check that deed to see if her and her ex-husband had owned title together as joint tenants with rights of survivorship, or just tenants in common. I suppose in this scenario, it was verified that it was tenants in common, being that you said that the children had a share. So therefore, his share, his interest in the property, it sounded like went to his heirs at law or his beneficiaries under his will. So we'll make that assumption. But for our viewership, just again, always a good spot there to see how you took title, because it's possible if it was in survivorship that the surviving member, or in this instance, Hannah, would own the property in its entirety. So let's just assume it was tenants in common. And so we've got multiple owners there, and they do go to sell the property. Well, I'm assuming then the cooperation is there. Everyone wants to sell the property, but maybe everyone doesn't want to let her get her $75,000 out first. And so we see this quite often with what we call unmarried cohabitants. And so before we have unmarried couples taking title, or really anyone, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, but when we have folks taking title together like that who are unmarried, you're just a conversation piece about whether or not we need a cohabitation agreement. In its most simplest form, a cohabitation agreement is going to account for who invested what into the property, who's paid for taxes, who's made improvements, who's made those mortgage payments, what happens upon death. And so that way there is some sort of agreement in place that someone would get reimbursed out of the proceeds before those proceeds are split based upon, how that was paid for over the years.
But
so
Carl,
I would think,
let me interrupt. But that's not going to help Hannah, since this has already transpired. So does she do anything? Can she do anything?
And yes, I think that we can glean some from how the courts have interpreted those cohabitation agreements to say that if she has receipts, if she can prove that those were improvements and therefore helped increase the marketability and that bottom line purchase price for the real property, I would like to think that a court would allow for her to recoup her investments, that $75,000. But is it foolproof? Absolutely not. And it may require a court action. So she can't just simply say, hey, I'm going to wave a magic wand, title company, you go ahead and put a line item for that $75,000, because in reality, there's no written agreement for that. And there's no lien on the property to account for that work. So if the children want to fight that, or the other title holders want to fight that, again, it could require a court action. Just going over the cohabitation agreements, that's why I was hopeful that a court may say, okay, based upon the receipts and how we view that these were legitimate improvements to the property that led to a higher purchase price, they may find that she's entitled to those monies back before those proceeds are split.
But it would go to a court, which would be costly because she's got to hire an attorney and go to court.
Absolutely. It's going to take money to make money there, unless you have mutual agreement, which they may not have. So if the children challenge her, we may be looking at a court action.